Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, all Australian households, all Australian businesses know all too deeply that a deep, profound energy crisis has emerged under this Prime Minister. And that deep energy crisis has led to a collapse in confidence in our energy system, and it's seen power bills go up and up and up for households and for businesses. And it's very clear what we need to start to bring that crisis to an end. We need sensible, centrist, bipartisan energy policy. But what we saw today, Mr Speaker, by this Prime Minister was the final act of capitulation to the hard right of the coalition party room on climate change and energy policy. We saw the big man at the press conference declaring victory over his nemesis, the former Prime Minister, but actually what happened in that coalition party room was a weak act of surrender. A weak act of surrender. The white flag is flying high over the Prime Minister's office now because what he announced at the press conference was an energy plan that will not see a single renewable energy project built for a decade, an energy plan that will see the rates of installation of rooftop solar cut by a half, and an energy plan that will channel billions and billions of taxpayers' money to building new coal-fired power stations. This is a plan that will smash jobs and investment in renewables. It will achieve no significant cuts in pollution from this sector that is responsible for a third of the total carbon pollution in our economy, and it will push power prices up even further. Whatever debate there was, whatever media leaking and speculation there was, it is very clear this was a victory for the right wing in the coalition party room. And the fact that the former Deputy Prime Minister, the member for New England, was able to support this energy plan tells you everything you need to know about it. The man, this Prime Minister, who once said he would not lead a party that was not as committed to effective action on climate change as he was, has joined the war against renewable energy and bizarrely decided to spend billions of dollars of taxpayers' money on new coal-fired power stations. Any credibility this man had in supporting evidence-based policy and taking serious action on climate change and power prices lies in tatters today. For 2 years, Mr Speaker, for 2 years, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Labor Party has been constructive about this policy area. On the emissions intensity scheme that the minister supported before he was vetoed by the former Deputy Prime Minister in 2016. On the clean energy target, which again the Prime Minister and the Minister for Energy supported last year before being vetoed by the former Prime Minister. On both of those policy areas, federal Labor offered its support in spite of the fact they were not our preferred policy prescriptions. And on this national energy guarantee, we have also been consistently constructive, consistently positive. But what the Prime Minister has offered up today is a plan to smash renewables and to channel taxpayers' money into building coal-fired power stations. And we cannot support that. We cannot support that. The National Energy Guarantee that is still the subject of negotiations at the COAG process is an investment framework. But you have to have a plan for investment to make it mean something. And this government's plan for investment will not see a single new renewable energy project built for an entire decade. It will smash investment. The National Energy Guarantee is a vehicle for our energy system that this government intends to drive back to the 1950s. And Australians, Mr Deputy Speaker, Australians will end up paying the price for this Prime Minister's abject weakness. This plan will smash jobs in renewable energy. It will cause thousands of job losses, according to all modelling in the renewable energy industry, just as the former Prime Minister caused 1 in 3 jobs, according to the ABS, 1 in 3 jobs in the renewable energy sector to be lost in their last attack on this industry. It will do nothing to cut pollution. Nothing. ASL Allen, the firm that's done the modelling for the National Energy Guarantee for this government and the Energy Security Board, ASL Allen has pointed out recently that a sector responsible for a third of the carbon pollution in our economy, the electricity sector, will do just 1/20th of the job of reducing pollution to achieve this government's inadequate Paris targets, leaving all of the rest of the heavy lifting to other sectors of the economy that don't have low-cost technology available to do it for them, because this Prime Minister is too weak to take the argument up for a serious, ambitious emissions reduction obligation on the electricity sector. It will also, Deputy Speaker, do nothing on prices. Now, particularly this minister trumpets a $550 saving for households from his policy. Now, where have we heard that before? Has the odd ring of familiarity to it for most Australian households, who very clearly remember this same party promising that their power bills for Australian households 5 years ago would go down by $550. And I don't know about my colleagues on this side or on the other side, but I suspect none of them have had a constituent come up and say how glad they are that the Liberal Party's promise was fulfilled, that their power bills went down by $550, because the experience across the country has been power bills going up and up and up under this government. Now, of the $450, of the $550, $400 anyway, according to the modelling, that merchant banker's gobbledygook, to use the language of the member for Warringah, $400 anyway, is connected to Labor's renewable energy target, the build to discharge the renewable energy target, which this government thankfully unsuccessfully tried to abolish a few years ago. The other $150, of course, is some theoretical decrease in borrowing costs for new investment projects, new energy projects, which is going to be hard to see how that ends up in households' pockets, given that the government's own modelling shows that not a single new project will actually be built. Not a single new project will be actually built. Mr Deputy Speaker, this is funny money. This is funny money that households will never end up seeing. But what households will end up seeing under this government, particularly pensioner households, particularly households in receipt of allowances, they will see a $365 cut to the energy supplement. If they're a couple, they'll see a cut of around, I think, $550 a year. Not the $150 funny money through a reduction in borrowing costs. This is real money that this government has been trying to cut from some of our lowest income households for 2 years now. We know, Deputy Speaker, according to all of the modelling, all of the expert advice, the surest way to bring down power prices is to expand renewable energy. The surest way to bring down power prices is to expand renewable energy. Modelling released by Reputex only a few weeks ago showed that wholesale power prices, under Labor's more ambitious plan to cut emissions by 45%, would be 25% lower through the course of the 2020s than under this government's inadequate plan that will see no investment, no downward pressure on power prices. But perhaps the most abjectly weak element of the Prime Minister's announcement today is over the last few days he has decided to channel billions of taxpayers' dollars into building new coal-fired power plants that the industry itself has said is uninvestable. The chair of the Energy Security Board, Kerry Schott, the board providing advice to this government on energy policy, has said there is no way companies will be investing in new coal-fired power stations, not just because they take 8 to 12 years to build, not just because they're massively more expensive than solar power and wind power, a fact borne out by the government's own modelling, not just because of the enormous carbon risk, the price risk, the regulatory risk that investors are shying away from, but because they're simply not going to work in the modern electricity market. The member for Eden Monaro pointed out in his first question to the Prime Minister, I'm sure he'll have more to say about this afternoon, that Snowy Hydro has made it very clear you can have new coal or you can have Snowy 2.0. You can simply not have both. Snowy 2.0 only works in an environment where there is substantial new building of renewable energy, something that the Prime Minister has weakly vetoed in his announcement today. Now, for this government, that originally I thought had a plan to land an energy policy that would have broad political and industry support, for this government to achieve that plan, this Prime Minister had to stare down the hard right. And what we've seen today is he's too weak to do it. He's too weak to do it. He has completely capitulated to the anti-renewables ideology of the hard right wing of that party room, and Australians will pay the price. They will pay the price for his weakness. They will pay the price in fewer jobs, in more pollution and in higher power prices, Mr Deputy Speaker.